He would rather have been back at home, listening to Blue Őyster Cult, masturbating over his relic. Hey, wait a minute.
This is I Don't Even Own a Television, Career of Evil.
1, 2, 3. There are books that are good, there are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all. 'Cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
You know, I don't make you read the cold opens that are at your expense.
Yeah, but it was so much fun. Welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television. This is a podcast about bad books. My name is JW, Dr. Not Masturbating Over Blue Őyster Cult Records Friedman.
And I'm Chris Tierney in Submission Collision.
Ooh, good one. I guess let's roll this back. I'm JW Transmaniacon MC Friedman.
Ooh.
There we go. Now that feels more thematic.
And I'm Chris Collision, and I'm burning for you.
And
Wink.
also as beautiful as a foot.
Exactly. So this is not actually a gibberish podcast usually. This is a podcast about bad books. And today we are taking on a book by Robert Galbraith,
quote,
wink,
unquote.
Yeah, called Career of Evil, and we keep saying nonsensical things, and that is because this book is redolent with the works of Blue Őyster Cult. Full disclosure, I am wearing a Blue Őyster Cult t-shirt right now. That is not unusual. I have several.
It's a 45th anniversary on tour forever, which is that's like daunting.
Yeah, this is legendarily the shirt that I bought at a show where we recorded a little earlier than normal, and I drove from San Francisco to Jackson to see them in a casino.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, even the imagery, it's like, you know, like hallways spanning forever ad infinitum.
Straight off the second record, huh?
Yeah, and then in the background, there's a small Blue Őyster Cult symbol, and it says, on tour forever.
Forever. So yeah, we had this in the back pocket for a long time, and I kind of pitched it because I thought it would be super duper fun. There's two things about it I did not know when I did so.
So I'm just going to say right now, before you say those two things,
yeah,
not super duper fun.
Right.
So let's have fun talking about it.
Thing one, and this is a small thing.
It's the one that encourages you to jump on the bed.
This book is nearly 500 pages long.
I believe it's over 500 pages, unless you have a different page count than I do.
I think I might have a different page count, but I hold in my hand the hardcover.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which is $4.92-ish, last I checked. The second issue is that this book is jam-packed, denser than you'd expect with things that require a content warning.
Yeah.
A ton of violence against women. It's the kind of book where every bad person is non-normative in appearance, whether that is their size or attractiveness level. It is extremely anti-sex worker, and there's a huge plot point around transableism. And there's some controversy over whether or not transableism is a real thing. Whether or not it's a real thing, on the page in this book, all the handlings of it read very much like an excuse for the author to voice some really ugly perspectives that I personally have zero hesitation in classifying as transphobic.
Yeah, I would agree with that, 100%.
Finally, even by genre standards, this thing has a view of mental illness and trauma that I think we could call retrograde and uninformed without hurting anybody's feelings being incorrect.
I think it could get even worse than that, and I'd still be on board. This book is just insensitive, like from top to bottom, which is kind of surprising when you find out who it was actually written by.
Yeah. And so, as always, we're not really going to talk about any of this stuff in depth, but there is at least as much violence and sexual violence, mostly directed towards women and children, as your average episode of Law & Order SVU. So please make your listening choices accordingly.
It's more like a marathon of Law & Order SVU because, once again, almost 500 pages. This book is half an infinite jest. And without all the clever footnotes.
And that is not our normal length metric, but I like it, and I think it should be.
Yeah. This is like Song of Ice and Fire length book.
This is 45% of an Against the Day.
Yeah. I'm not sure how many pages are in Brothers Dostoevsky, but I'm sure it's somewhere around here. I'm just saying, this is a really, really long book for what is essentially a very, very boilerplate detective story with a lot of upsetting things in it.
Right.
Yeah.
So now that we've gotten ourselves nice and bummed out, let's return to the world of comedy that is Robert Galbraith,
quote
wink,
unquote,
author of the #1 bestseller, The Cuckoo's Calling, and presumably...
Is that what Robert Galbraith is the author of?
Yeah, and presumably no other books that you've heard of.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. All I have to say about this book is that, I was very surprised that within the first couple pages, no one talked to our hero, who very realistically is named Cormoran Strike.
Cormoran Strike.
And
that's not cormorant. It's not the bird.
No,
it's just a
cormoran.
bad version of Cameron.
Yeah. I'm just very surprised no one said, "You're a detective, Cormoran?"
Yeah.
And then, a fucking owl flew in through the window to hand him a magical letter because...
hello, what's all this?
So this is one of JK Rowling's books that she wrote under a pseudonym. Apparently it's the third in what will be a 4-part series. There's another one coming.
What?
And
well, she's blowing deadlines then, because this thing came out like 5 years ago.
The fourth may already be out, to be honest.
Okay.
I was not paying that much attention when I did my cursory research. And I'll admit I did the research for one reason and one reason only. And I wanted to know whether or not her cover was blown, or whether she just actually came out one day and was like, "It's me. It was me all along writing these books."
Okay. Which is it? Because I don't know.
It turns out I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
And admittedly, there are people who will disagree with this for sure, but there's a lot of real-life intrigue surrounding the reveal that J.K. Rowling is actually Galbraith.
Now, this is interesting because this sounds very much like that one, and I believe only one, Stephen King book about a writer who found more fame under a pseudonym and then got... roped into some dark doings.
Yeah.
There definitely was only one. There weren't multiple, 9 of them.
Yeah. There was an entire series of them or anything. I aim with my heart. I shoot with my mind or something. I don't know. It's been a long time. So the first book of this series came out. They've all have been published by Little Brown. First book came out, did not do well. It was actually reviewed pretty well, but it didn't sell very many copies. Second book came out, had been out for about 3 months, and had sold 1,500 copies. When suddenly, big things happened.
I have no idea where you're going with this.
Well, an account appeared on Twitter by somebody named Jude Caligari, I believe. Jude Caligari.
Okay.
That just basically made a couple tweets that said, "Robert Galbraith is J.K. Rowling," abandoned the account, then deleted the account. Now, Rowling got very mad, quote unquote, at her lawyer, and because this Jude Caligari was apparently his wife's best friend, so she decided to take him to court for damages, including, get ready for this, £1,000.
An entire £1,000, you say?
Yeah. And, at that point, it becomes public record. And what do you know? All of a sudden, these books start flying off the shelves. They have to print it the second and the third edition to keep up with the demand. So she Streisand affected herself, basically. I think that if it was not her...
Yeah.
It was definitely her PR company. And I know this is a really cynical way to look at it, but when you've released 2 books in a 4-part series, and I'm sure this was planned to be a series up front because... she sells books, and so I'm sure Little Brown was like, yeah, this is going to be great. And I think, after the second one came out, it spent 3 months selling less copies than many 7 inches of local bands that they self-release. Somebody figured something had to be done. So, yes, I'm a cynic, but it's a little hard for me to believe that this all just occurred naturally, especially when you look at the fact that the lawsuit was filed for exactly £1,000.
£1,000.
This is a woman with millions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point. there's a very oblique reference to this in the acknowledgments that goes like this. Robert Galbraith has always felt like my own private playground, and he didn't let me down on this occasion. I have to thank my usual team for ensuring that my once secret identity remains such fun. With the context that you've just given me, which I didn't have before, this all feels like a little bit of a wink.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, during the court proceedings, she even, said almost identically that, where she's like, this is my chance to write about the things I don't normally get to write about. And, I really feel like it was stolen from me and blah, blah, blah. But 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
She lives in a castle, I think. If not, she could.
Well, and she knows a lot about doors, and yes, that's a very clunky segue, but I just have to, while I have it open to the acknowledgments page, read the most upsetting thing in this book, which is, in her list of thanks, previous clause ends with a semicolon. The backdoor man, capitals, for reasons best left undisclosed, colon, moves on, or semicolon, moves on. What the fuck?
Okay, so there's two ways of thinking about this.
One, and we're not going to talk about either of them. We can leave those as an exercise for the listeners.
I'm talking about them. One of them is butt stuff. That's the obvious one. But the other one would be like the more obscure kind of backdoor man as trickery and involvement with the sort of intrigue of, say, running a hoax Twitter campaign to unmask a pseudonym.
It's as the Bible teaches us about the backdoor man. The men don't know what the little girls understand. And yes, I did just creep myself out.
Yeah, you did. I was thinking of this 80s metal song called T-Ride, called Backdoor Romeo, that the whole song
What could that be about, I wonder?
Well, it's not. That's the thing. It's about a guy who's he's sneaking around with other people's women, and he comes in through the back door of the house, but there's no sense that they know it's a double entendre at all. It comes across like they're completely oblivious, which is hilarious.
That's very upsetting.
Yeah,
in some fundamental ways.
It's like these guys can shred on the guitar, but apparently they have no connection to reality whatsoever.
It might have been Dorothy Parker who famously filleted somebody at the table with her by saying, "Oh, I understand your work is full of single entendre."
All right, so before we go any further, I think we've got to do it. And originally I was just going to rib you a bunch about it, but I know...
Jay, had to do it to him.
Yeah. But I'm not going to. I'm going to let you approach this on your own terms.
No, let's hear it. Let's hear it. Let's just let me have it. Just give it.
This stupid mystery is all about Blue Őyster Cult. I know if this book was about Clutch, I'd get the same treatment, so it's okay.
Yeah, but the difference is when you read a book that's all about Clutch, glommed onto a fucking genre novel, you like it. And
yeah,
it's good.
Do. But that's because it was a good book. And it wasn't fucking 500 pages long.
Son of a...
Unfortunately, I won't say your favorite band. I think the concept of favorite band is a little weird and reductive, but a band that you really love was attached to what I would describe as a piece of shit.
Now, here's the thing. You're right. Here's another thing. The idea that this is deeply indebted to Blue Őyster Cult is, I think, arguable at best.
Uh-huh.
The very strong impression that I get is that someone in the JK Rowling book production empire team...
Is that how have I been pronouncing it wrong this whole time?
I think I read somewhere that it said Rowling, but here's the thing. I don't care.
All right.
Mostly I like to say it like that because it allows me to think, keep rolling, 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 rolling.
What?
Which through the course of 500 pages, or as we both had some encounter with, 8 15 hours of audiobook excellence.
Jesus Christ.
So somebody, I think, was probably behind her, giving her neck rubs as she typed, or more likely dictated large swaths of this novel on the treadmill, saying that to her. And she did. She did keep going.
I get the feeling this book was Dale Coopered. Like, so much of it was like, a dictaphone and like, Cynthia, write this down.
Yeah.
His name is Cormoran Strike. No, seriously, Cormoran Strike. Yeah.
But I was going to say that what I feel probably happened behind the scenes is that some kind of production assistant, writing partner, helper person printed out the lyrics and just went through with a highlighter and found a bunch of cool / creepy stuff. And, this is a book that revolves around a plot hook of someone being sent a leg. Yes, Blue Őyster Cult's predecessor band did have a song called Beautiful. She's as Beautiful as a Foot.
It's a really good song.
That I think also did make it onto the first BOC album.
It is on a Blue Őyster Cult album because I'm nowhere near the level of fan you are, and I'm familiar with that song.
But the overall perspective on BOC here, and I say this as a true fan who is in, more than one Facebook group devoted to the band.
Okay, boomer.
I know. Oh, dude, I actually, just sidebar, I love it because it's nothing but old person internet. So like 80% of the posts are somebody posting a Blue Őyster Cult song off of YouTube saying, I love this song. Anybody else? And then 15 replies, hell yeah. Classic, man. Cheers for this.
Doesn't get much better than this one.
Yeah, and it's a rare pocket of positivity in my life.
It's like me and my Owl Facebook groups before they all turned into weird like wars. Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, drama has invaded the Owl Facebook group. Stay clear.
I'll keep my eyes wide open for that.
Oh,
sounds like a hoot.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, so the perspective, for example, there's lyrics off of, I believe, and I could be wrong about this. I was not taking my usual degree of notes, but there are lyrics off of the universally, including by the band, despised record Club Ninja.
Yeah.
Which sounds like what it sounds like. There's a lot of lyrics by John Shirley era BOC, which is nobody's favorite, even John Shirley's. John Shirley, fave rave of the IDEO TV podcast, Traveler Forever, what?
What? I do want to mention that every chapter in this starts with an epigram that is a Blue Őyster Cult lyric.
Or has a title that is a Blue Őyster Cult lyric or reference. Here are a couple that they left off the table, and I thought of both of these in the car on the way over here.
Okay.
Pain, steel, a plot of knives.
Jesus Christ. That's a description of this book.
That is a literal description of this book. That is in the first song off of their first album, Transmaniacon MC.
That's a fucking awesome song.
Also off the first album, a song called Screams, whose first line is Screams in the night.
Yeah.
Again,
Cities on Flame with rock and roll.
Description of the entire book right there. Screams in the night. And both of those were left on the table. So I have to say, another really good one. There's a song that I really like that's very poppy and peppy. But the lyric is kind of creepy. It's a song it's a song called Mirrors. And it starts off like, mirrors are a negative space with a frame. And the chorus of it is a couple of women almost chant singing, pretty girls can't look away. Pretty girls can't look away. It's deeply creepy. And it would be perfect
also
to put...
fits very well with this narrative.
Put in the mind of the serial killer in this fucking book.
Which we haven't done a plot in 60 seconds yet. We'll get to it soon.
We will.
But I do want to talk about...
So, JK Rowling, I will debate the finer points of BOC fandom with you anytime, any day. Gauntlet thrown.
Oh, did we mention Eric Bloom from Blue Őyster Cult is a character in this book? A minor character.
He is name checked at least a few times.
Yeah. Can you explain to me why? You're a bigger fan than me, so maybe you know the answer here. Why would you put Eric Bloom in this book and not the much more well-known and much more JK Rowling named Buck Dharma?
Right. So here's the thing. A little peek behind the curtain. There's two kinds of BOC fans.
Okay.
There's your Buck Dharma fans who rightly recognize that 2 of the 3 songs you've heard that are by Blue Őyster Cult were written and instrumented and, in fact, sung almost entirely by him. That'd be Don't Fear the Reaper and Burnin' For You.
Yeah.
In fact, the band had to strong-arm him into letting them use Burning For You on a band record because he wanted to put it on his solo record, which would have ended BOC as a kind of viable commercial outfit had they not had that hit.
That makes sense. I mean, his name belongs in this book, and we'll
Indeed.
get there.
Yeah. And then there's another kind of BOC fan, and those are the Eric fans. I'm an Eric fan.
Gotcha.
So there's some possibility that JK is also an Eric fan. But again, I look forward to discussing this with her at our inevitable BOC summit that I assume will be on like BBC 4.
One can only hope.
Yeah.
So there's an important fact to all of this.
Yeah.
And it has to do with the way the music industry works. So before we get into plot in 60 seconds, I'm going to put on my Steve Albini glasses. Those are the really ugly ones. The big black chunky ones, and I'm going to lecture you kids out there for a few minutes about something called publishing rights, which you should never sign away to your record label. Now, say your band gets a record contract, and your label is like, we want the publishing rights to your songs. You should absolutely say no, because then, while you may have control of actually performing those songs in public, the label can do whatever they want with those songs because they are now the publishers of them.
Do you want to hear your song behind a commercial for not the good kind, but the bad kind of dildo? No?
Yeah.
Then keep your publishing rights, kids.
Yeah, so I found a little piece of a quote here from Eric Bloom talking about how this all came to pass. As to how all of this came about, I don't know the thoughts in Miss Rowling's head about why she picked me. If I ever meet her, I will ask. I don't know if she's even a BOC fan, but obviously there must be something that she's referencing. I think she's like 50, so people who are 50-ish, 30 or 35 years ago, they were teens, and that goes back to our heyday, shall we say. So maybe she had a BOC painted jacket or saw us at the Hammersmith or Manchester Apollo. Maybe she came to shows as a young lady and saw us play or bought records. She got it from someplace. She could have picked any band, though. Blue Őyster Cult's longtime manager, Steve Shank, is more sure about Rowling's affection for the band. She's a huge Blue Őyster Cult fan, he says, and you can tell by how deep she went. Besides the obvious songs on that Columbia catalog, she picked stuff from that later period and even grabbed The Girl That Made Love Blind, which was going to be on the Imaginos record, but was cut. If you're a fan, you know the song. I've spoken to her agent, and clearly Rowling knows. Bloom says he first found out about Blue Őyster Cult's prominence a few months before the book was published because that's when they had to get permission to use the lyrics. There was a business pipeline that has to come down as far as licensing, and it goes through our management and her agency. I was removed from it. I would get a phone call saying, this is going on because I own a publishing company, and Buck owns a publishing company, but Sony owns the rights to our catalog. All this had to go down in a matter-of-fact fashion. It was a negotiation. There were no huge dollars going on, but it was fair. So they didn't even know that they were going to be a massive part of this book until months before it was published.
Yeah. I am shocked that there is not, in fact, a long, fairly public record of J.K. Rowling writing MASH notes to Eric Bloom, but slightly disheartened to see how the sausage was made in this, especially because I have in past, and possibly maybe doing now again, stay tuned, done a thing where I structure a piece of writing that I do with song titles in particular taken from other places to use as kind of signposts and titles through the work myself. And this kind of gives that a bad name. And I just want to say I got there first. I did it more respectfully.
And you probably did it yourself. And I still I agree with you that this was probably factory farmed, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And BOC, just for the record, there's somewhere an internet archive of me arguing with people on AOL about what the best BOC records were. So, true fan.
Okay, so on with the show.
Yeah.
It's probably time for a plot in 60 seconds because we're almost half an hour in.
Nobody knows if you finish or not. You've got 60 seconds to give them a plot. Plot in 60 seconds.
So, Collision, there is no way in hell you can do it.
500 pages, 60 seconds. I got this.
500 pages, like 32 characters.
Just like always.
6 different simultaneous plot lines, not including red herrings.
It's also the third in the series.
Yeah, so do your best, my friend.
Thanks, buddy.
Here we go. Begin.
27-year-old Robin Ellicott works in a two-person detective agency whose other person is 37-year-old, 6'3", former boxer and war veteran / military policeman, think Jack Reacher, inexplicably named Cormoran Strike. Also, he lost one leg under the knee. They're in London. Robin is due to get married, but is fighting a lot with her fiancé. Then, someone sends Robin a severed leg. Who could have done this? Also, whose leg is it? And is she doing okay? Obviously, she's not winning a lot of arguments. Pause for laughter.
Ha ha.
The mystery is afoot. Pause for laughter. Cormoran, who is dating a woman he doesn't like, can think of 4 people who might have wanted to send him a leg. A criminal, 2 guys he knew in the army, and his ex-stepdad, a thrash metal guitarist and lyricist who may have killed Cormoran Strike's mother, Leda, who was such a huge fan of Blue Őyster Cult that she dubbed herself Mistress of the Salmon Salt after an obscure Patti Smith lyric-written song off their second album, and got that phrase tattooed over what the audiobook narrator keeps calling her pubic hair. One of these 4 is a red herring. One turns up and might be threatening a little girl. One stalks Robin and kills a lot of people, until Strike solves everything by noticing 2 clues the reader wasn't given, and he and Robin reconcile and might get married. It's not clear. The end.
You forgot to mention the 2 other suspects that come into play later. And I'm actually going to disagree with you about the fact that the clues were not given to the reader.
Okay.
But we'll get more to that in high points, low points.
Okay.
I do want to say his metalhead stepfather played in a series of bands that are described as thrash bands.
Thrash metal bands,
and one
baby.
of them has the name Restorative Art.
Right.
Which, to me, is the most unbelievable thing in this entire book.
So there's 3 names: Restorative Art, I forget the second, and then the third is Necromantic. And since the audiobook narrator is not extremely familiar with the genre, I take it, I had to see it in print before I realized it wasn't the word body part neck space body part romantic.
Yeah, I'm real into necks.
And I was like, what is this? That sounds more like a goth band to me.
It still sounds more like a goth band to me, even when you know what it is.
Fair point.
But, yeah. So,
Restorative arts. Yeah, I mean, even given the sub-ideal nature of English thrash band naming conventions, I think restorative arts is weak tea.
That's like some Talking Head shit. That's not a metal band.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I refuse to acknowledge that as a metal band.
Ladies and gentlemen, Art Brute, McCluskey, and Restorative Art.
Yeah.
Here on the John Peel sessions.
Yeah, totally. Restorative Art would have a tiny desk concert.
Restorative Art would play the 3rd stage at Coachella.
Their name would be real small at the bottom.
Restorative Art would play on Late Night with Craig Ferguson's cousin.
They'd have a dedicated ukulele player. So I really, really don't like reading books or watching TV that's about the quote-unquote indie music scene when they're written by people who very obviously know nothing about the quote-unquote indie music scene. So parts of this book drove me up the fucking wall. It was like Scott Pilgrim times 10.
Would you like to name one of those parts?
I mean, just what the stuff we were just talking about, like the names of the groups, the way that tours work in this, like these big bands go on tour and they play in tiny pubs and they play in the same town 3 nights in a row, and then they go to another town like 20 miles over and sleep at the fucking singer's house in between shows. And it's like, maybe things are different in England. I don't know, but it drove me fucking crazy. And I just wanted to point that out.
I get that. I probably won't use this as a high point when we get there, but I will say it was heartening to me to see in a JK Rowling level author the phrase, not incorrectly used, thrash metal.
That is true.
The idea that he's later wearing a Slayer t-shirt and is sitting around ripping off Anton LaVey and Aleister Crowley, and it's described, I think, fairly accurately as opposed to the actual mechanics of touring, made me laugh. Like, who else at her level of success and impact in the culture is going to do this and kind of get it right? Like Stephen King doesn't know that there's been a record made since 1979, which is sad because he loves the Ramones. And I think if somebody could like tell him that they did a song about Pet Sematary, that would make him really happy.
Or like, hey, Stephen King, here's a Medzigers record. Go fucking crazy. Like, holy shit, the kids are all right.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, do you like Feelings, Steven? And he's like in his, kind of dotage, he's turned into the kind of guy who genuinely does like Feelings. So like, here's some Weaker Thans. And he just like loses his fucking shit.
Now I'm imagining Stephen King like getting all into Iron Chic and like opening his next fucking album or opening his next book with the epigram, I want to smash my face into the fucking radio.
Yeah.
- Iron Chic.
I mean, and I have to be honest, I got into Robert Creeley because Stephen King used him as an epigraph to The Stand.
There you go.
There are many roads to the top of the mountain.
I don't doubt that Rowling, however you want to say it, I think it's Rowling, I'm probably wrong. I don't doubt that she was into metal in her youth because she is pretty on point about a lot of this stuff. I do doubt that she's quite as huge of a Blue Őyster Cult fan as their agent seems to think. But she definitely, she doesn't fuck up metal as bad as most people who write about metal. Like, she doesn't know how the mechanics of the music industry work, but she definitely seems to understand the music and its weird little subgenres and stuff.
And that, I don't know, like I said, probably not quite worthy of a high point, but I did find it heartening. That might just have been me clinging to something because I really wanted her to be a really big Blue Őyster Cult fan, man.
So there's this episode of Midsummer Murders, and it's about the Midsummer Blues Festival, and this rock guitar player from the 70s comes into town named the Axeman. And
God, please tell me it's Michael Schenker.
No, it's not, unfortunately. And then he gets murdered. And but before that, our hero of Midsummer Murders, at this point, I think it was still DCI Barnaby the first, just is fanning the fuck out over him. And I got a lot of those vibes from this book, and it made me laugh a lot. I couldn't stop thinking about that Midsummer Murders episode.
Sometimes when you're talking about Pokemon, and it's real clear that I don't have any idea what you're talking about, we can add Midsummer Murders to another.
To be fair, most people who don't live in retirement homes have no idea what I'm talking about when I speak about Midsummer Murders, but it's a thing.
I mean, that doesn't mean don't talk about it, but that's the idea that there could be references like spackled onto this thing that I didn't even understand could exist.
Oh, it's not intentional.
Little frightening to me.
It just had the same kind of fan energy that you get from. I believe the episode is entitled "The Axeman Cometh."
Ooh, so you can tell that whoever wrote that is not a Michael Schenker fan because one of his better and better known songs is called Attack of the Mad Axeman.
Yeah, it would be totally called that.
And it is actually one of the better songs about being really good at rocking, but couched in the language of something else.
Ah, a classic trope,
subgenre,
if you will.
Yeah. Maybe we should try some high points and low points here.
High points are high, and low points are low. High points, low points, get ready to go.
Okay, why don't you go first with a high point?
Okay, so this is possibly stretching the definition of a high point, but there's a scene fairly early where Robin and her fiancé Matthew have been bickering for like 100 pages. And he has to work late. She is, 6 hours into her night of not being able to sleep because she's been sent a fucking leg in the post that day.
Yeah. A human leg.
A human leg. Severed human leg. She had to sign for it. She took it up to her desk. She's like, oh, I think this is going to be disposable cameras for my wedding.
Yeah, literally. She was like, ooh, Amazon came. And yeah.
She opens it up, and there's this incredible moment where she's working on her laptop, and she's kind of working the case, right? And she somehow has heard of this fetish. And the backstory is, her fiancé kind of thinks maybe she has a thing for Cormoran Strike.
Who, it should be mentioned, is missing a leg due to his war record.
Yeah, and he comes in and he sees on her laptop basically the Wikipedia entry for sexual fetish for amputee, and it is the clunkiest scene, and I was listening to it in my car and I could not stop fucking laughing at how contrived it was, as though, oh, you caught me reading the Wikipedia page for my sexual fetish.
Yeah.
Like, I am sure that has happened. But if it happened in real life,
it might have led to some good times.
It would have been a lot less clunky than this. And you're fucking right. So, Matthew, you're kind of a secondary villain in the book. Like, you're not actually taking your machete to the club or anything. Yeah. But you're definitely not GGG, my man.
I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but I always leave my laptop open to the page for thigh-high boots. So.
Oh, that explains. I'm going to steal this joke from Elliot from the Flophouse, who once said his sexual fetish was nice-looking ladies.
Yeah, ladies. Yeah, that's. I mean, yeah, agreed. All right. So my first high point is, surprisingly, and I think this is going to shock you too. This is not a bad whodunit as far as by my standards.
Wrong.
It's way too long. And it's meandery, and it's filled with bullshit that has nothing to do with the mystery, like you just mentioned. There are like B plots, C plots, E plots, L plots that have very little to do with the mystery and don't really fill out our characters because they're all kind of two-dimensional stereotypes before and after we dive deeper into them.
Yeah.
But there are several clues dropped along the way that could allow a savvy reader to discover the identity of the killer just by reading the book.
Okay. I think that there's two things I want to say. There's one clue repeated over and over again that leads you to the identity of the killer, and that's Strike cost him a son.
No.
That's the good one. But the, spoiler, the double identity thing, I don't buy it.
The double identity thing works, though, right? Because
I don't think it does.
All right.
Did not work for me.
It worked for me solely because of this. Within the first 150 pages of this, they're investigating a girl who has disappeared.
Right.
And they find Accutane in her room.
Yeah.
Which is acne medication.
Yeah.
But then later on, it's revealed that the suspect that they have has psoriatic arthritis, which causes you to puff up quite a bit, and it causes your skin texture to change. And Accutane is also used to treat psoriatic arthritis. And if you were really paying attention, and this book weren't 500 pages long, you could probably catch on to that pretty quick. It's also mentioned several times that when they're looking for this guy and they see pictures of him, he looks like a quote-unquote completely different man. And they attribute that to this disease that he has or this skin condition that he has. But he actually is a completely different man. And those are the two clues that I thought. I was like, that is kind of clever. And I even think Agatha Christie would approve. But I also think she would say this book should be like 500 pages shorter and a short story, and I think she would be right. And, you can hate me if you want, but I do think that those clues were dropped deftly. The problem is that the book is filled with so much padding that you forget about them by the time it comes back around.
Yeah, and this is a book where every time Cormorant Strike wears a suit, it's mentioned that it's an Italian suit. It's like the writing does not know that there's a difference between suit and Italian suit. It goes for Italian suit literally every single time. This is a book where we're told he grew up in Cornwall about every 20 pages, despite the fact that it's relevant exactly one fucking time.
So it's so filled with
maybe
bullshit.
The clues were there. Maybe. I'm still not quite buying it. I think the
Accutane thing was amazingly clever. And when they figured it out at the end, it actually made me go, oh, shit. Because, it's a teenage girl's room. You're like, oh, Accutane, acne medication.
Yeah, she had also been established as having acne.
Yeah.
And maybe I was just distracted because having been on Accutane.
I was on Accutane too.
I can confirm that shit will fuck you up.
Yeah, it makes your face like bright red.
Yeah.
Peely and gross, sort of like my new tattoo.
It is the reason I am rarely shirtless, because my torso is covered with acne scars.
Yeah.
Thanks, Accutane, for your model of make it way worse before you make it better.
But
sorry if that fucks up anybody's fanfic out there.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, I thought it was clever. And I think it would have been more clever without the stuff that you mentioned, and the fact that this book really does tend to wallow in things it doesn't need to wallow in. I don't need 20 pages of our heroine, Robin, walking back and forth down the street, contemplating, various things. I don't need Cormoran Strike doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't need, all of these weird B-plots about, how Cormoran doesn't get along with his girlfriend's parents, and his girlfriend is, a complete non-character in this book. Oh, did we mention there's literally a woman in a refrigerator?
Oh, yeah. That's so...
That's more of a low point territory, but yeah.
Okay, but ancillary high point is I was complaining about this book to the Lady Noodles, and she kind of thought about it for a second, and I kind of walked her through the fridging thing, because this is a book written 10 years after comic books had gotten a lot of flack for using hero's girlfriend body part in fridge as grimdark signifier.
Yeah.
Right. So we're 10 years after the backlash when this book is getting written. So I talked to her about that, and she thought for a minute, and she said, I think if I had $40 million and the ability to write whatever the fuck I wanted, I probably would not choose to write a book where a bunch of women get chopped up.
Yeah.
And I think that is... that in a just world, that would be the pull quote on the cover of this goddamn thing. You could have written anything you wanted, JK. You could have even done a deep dive and then met with me and written an introduction to one of the two books I pitched 33 1/3 press on about Blue Őyster Cult.
Yeah, write the book about the band.
No, write the introduction so I get to write the book, because if you write the introduction... that Mama Jama's going to sell.
Yeah, I don't know. I even have in my notes, and I skipped over it, but this is really obviously Rowling trying to do kind of the James Patterson thriller with a little bit of that kind of British mystery tradition baked into it. But it's amazing how fucking sexist and gross and misogynist it is when it comes from someone who has spent literal weeks arguing on Twitter trying to retcon her previous work to be more woke and fucking politically decent than it actually is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's this is the same person who's going on to Twitter and going, well, Dumbledore is actually gay, and then she's coming in and making horrible trans jokes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, that really, it's disappointing.
Yeah. One might say that another low point is how fucking classist she is. There's this long scene where Robin, who is actually quite a good character, spoiler, think Hermione Granger.
I was just going to say Robin is Hermione grown up working at a detective agency.
Yeah, the one good character.
And she rules. She's very self-sufficient. She's really smart. She gets in trouble a bunch of times.
Right.
There's actually a really cool scene where she's physically attacked and escapes, and then
basically kicks the guy's ass.
Yeah, but then she goes on to talk about how she took a self-defense class that was taught by a man and it sucked.
Yeah.
And then she took a self-defense class that was taught by a woman that was all like, it's not about complicated throws and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I was like, this rules.
Yeah.
Like, Robin is cool.
So there's this big scene where, so I mentioned that she and Strike reconcile. I did not mention what the big break was. The big break between them, the big rift in the relationship, is she becomes convinced that one of the suspects, who they're pretty sure is not responsible for the leg sending, is, however...
the leg sending.
Well, I don't know what to call it.
I don't know what to call it either, but I've got a new song title. I'm keeping a notebook at this point.
All right, well, take it up with my management. We'll negotiate a fair settlement.
They're all going to sound like Don Caballero, and 8 people will buy them. So,
wow. 25% more people than ever bought any Don Cab records.
You're allowed to do that because Blue Őyster Cult. Like,
right.
you can make fun of me about any music you want this episode, and I have to take it. So,
so there's this big scene. The rift that is caused is she won't basically obey Cormorant Strike. She becomes convinced that a suspect they've more or less ruled out is probably traveling around and is a major threat to young girls. And she decides to intervene. And she has this long fight with her mom, with the little girl's mom, who is womp womp, because JK Rowling is a little clumsy, a recently fired stripper from the underclass. And they actually have to have a fist fight about whether or not any of this is true before the older daughter says, Mom, it's true what she said. Bunch of shit happens, and then the following exchange happens. Listen, says Elisa. There were still tear tracks down her face. Robin could tell that Elisa was unused to thanking people. Thanks, all right, she said, almost aggressively. No problem, said Robin, middle-classishly and therefore correctly. I mean, it's really annoying.
And the way this book treats sex workers is fucking reprehensible.
Yeah.
I mean, like, to the point where, and, you know, I'm not going to get deep into it on a political level, but when Cormorant Strike is on a stakeout, you know, he meets a attractive sex worker. Oh my goodness. And, you know, he's getting information from her. So he meets her at a bar later and then comes back and is all like in his head, like, yeah, she really liked me. She wanted to give me a massage and all this stuff. It's just like gross, dude. Gross.
I had completely missed it until I was re-listening a little bit today just to, you know, steep myself in the Robert Galbraith tea flavor. Very, very early.
There's a lot of sweat in that flavor, by the way.
Very, very early, he's looking for a place to have a drink and think for a second, and he happens to be really close to a strip club, and there's this throwaway, like, he didn't mind paying money to look at boobs, but he just wasn't in the mood for loud or cigarette smoke or something like that. And it's like, thank you for having your narrative cake and trying to eat it too, Bob.
I will say that scene does include my favorite line of this book, which is a piece of wall art, we might call it. It's a sign that says, anyone caught masturbating will be removed from the premises immediately.
You know, that brings me to one of my rules of thumb. I've probably said this before, but anytime you see a sign prohibiting a piece of behavior, that piece of behavior has happened at least 2 times before. So if you see that, you probably want to leave.
Yeah, like I'm I'm not going to lie. I have been to a couple strip clubs in my time. I have friends who have gotten married and have had bachelor parties. And even though it's not my jam, I've gone along with them.
We record every third episode in a strip club.
I mean, it's not my thing. It's not my thing at all. I'm not just saying that. It makes me a little uncomfortable. Longtime listeners of the show know I'm a little prudish. But like, I have never once in my life seen a sign that says, "Don't jerk it." Like, that is pretty intense.
I have... But it was at the DMV. And I'm like, I get it. We're going to be here a long time. Do you have another low point before we try to escape this nightmare?
I do, and we've alluded to it a lot, so I'm not going to go into it in detail. But like, obviously, a book that's approaching 500 pages needs to have a large cast to keep it moving. And this book, though, gets way too into this idea. Like, there's like 30 plus named characters who are all at least semi-important to the story at any given point in time, and then they vanish. At one point, there are literally 5 suspects in play at once, and not like in a cozy mystery sort of way where those are the only 5 characters you need to care about.
Yeah, they're not all in the room.
Yeah, it's like they're spread out across the fucking entirety of a fucking country, and you're supposed to be able to keep track of them. It's just like there's too many plates spinning here, and Rowling seems to have no problem just abandoning one of the sticks and letting the plate crash to the ground, you know? So like, I didn't draw a murder board this time around on our whiteboard, you'll be surprised to know, and it's because my whiteboard is not large enough. I would need like 3
Nowhere
more
near.
whiteboards the same size in order to keep track of all of the weird interconnectivity between these characters that ultimately do not matter.
You underplayed it. There are at least 2 full cross-country road trips to investigate the big suspects.
The red herrings.
Yeah. And it really doesn't. Well, I think both of them actually kind of play out.
Yeah,
a
you're
little
right.
bit.
You're right. But it's also worth noting that almost everyone in this book that isn't guilty of the crime is still guilty of a side crime.
Yeah.
Which is, generally equally bad, but they're not the one you're supposed to care about.
So better series detective novels than this one kind of rubbed up against Harry Potter when I was reading a lot of both of those, and made me realize that the thing that Harry Potter crystallized so magically, at least for me, is that the whole premise is that there's this world behind the world. There's the normal Muggle world, but then there's this amazing...
we just live in it.
Yeah. But then there's this amazing shit going on that you don't know about and are getting this glimpse into. And the best, I think, crime novels and private eye novels kind of work the same, where, David Lynchishly, they show you the seedy underbelly of the suburbs. But this is just tiresome, and it's kind of like a little kid sitting next to you in like 8th grade, which I think is the peak for this kind of behavior. I'm like, want to see that cover of oh shit, what was that? What was that awful TV series, Faces of Death? Like, want to see that cover of Faces of Death? Want to see a picture of a dead dog I saw? Want to see, and it's just,
the rotten.com kind of bullshit.
Yeah, and it's just like 500 fucking pages of it.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to high points. Let's end this segment on some high points. So do you got one?
I do. And this is, so you texted me at one point, I think, and said, it has the same voice and tone as Harry Potter, and I actually really disagreed with that.
It did at first, and then it goes... I texted you that very early in my reading.
The thing that I think it does share with Harry Potter...
Oh, no. We might have the same high point, but please continue.
Is that... And full disclosure, I quit reading Harry Potter after, I think, the 4th book. It was whichever one is the first one where it takes longer to get to school for the school year than the first book had pages.
Yeah.
I think it was number 4. It might have been number 5. I forget. Anyway, one of the things that she's incredibly good at is showing friends fighting.
Okay.
People fighting via text message. There's some angry texting going on between Robin and her fiance after she calls off the wedding.
And it gets its own typeface.
That is scathing.
Yeah.
She's incredibly good at showing what it's like to be fighting with your boss, who you actually genuinely like and respect most of the time. really good at showing what it's like to be mad at your girlfriend for no particular reason, except you're unhappy and she's there. Mad at your fiance. Like, she's really good at that, and makes me wish the book had been just ordinary people more than SVU in London.
I agree, although I think you're downplaying the fact that her fiance is a fucking dick.
I didn't realize what a heel he was. Well, so at the very end of the book, there's this extended scene that I literally gasped at, where
he steals her phone.
He answers her phone while she's in the bathroom, deletes her voicemails, clears her call record and shit. Yeah. I didn't realize, though, that is the groundwork is laid for that in the first 20 pages, where she's doing laptop work and thinks, oh, you know what? The other day I did come in and he was reading my fucking emails.
Yeah, pro tip, get the fuck out. That's when you don't say yes to the dress and you say no to the bro.
Yeah, whoa.
I just made that up.
Did you just make that up?
I did. Improv classes finally paying off again.
Speaking of song titles.
So we didn't go in the same direction, and I'm glad, because my last high point is, I'll admit, it's tinged with a bit of sarcasm. JK Rowling has this tick, and I don't think she's capable of controlling it. And it's naming characters whimsical things.
Oh, dear.
And I absolutely love the fact that, she's trying to write this grim, dark-ass fucking detective story, and she still names characters things like Cormoran Strike and Brittany Brockbank and things like that. It's like, I can imagine she's trying to put pen to paper to write the name Fred Thomas, and there's some kind of supernatural force keeping the tip of her pen from actually touching the paper until she changes it to George Periwinkle or something like that.
Let's just talk about some of the side characters' names. Like all proper detectives, Cormorant is on the right side of the law, but has a hoodlum friend who's on the wrong side and does him the kind of strong arm favors you need. And
he might just steal your mobile.
Yeah.
He might even nick it.
He might nick it. And what is his name?
Oi, it's Shanker, mate.
And I think this is deliberate, his one cop friend, because all the cops have to hate Cormoran Strike.
Oh, he's a PI. That's how it works.
Yeah, except he's got one ally on the police force, and what's that guy's name?
Carver.
Shanker and Carver.
The Knife Brothers.
The Knife Brothers. But there is one scene.
By the way, now touring with the circus, if you want to go check them out. Yeah.
Oh, good. Good for them. Shanker has a scene at one point where someone just yells at him, Shanker, do not stab him. And I yelled loudly in my apartment, startling my cat, Nigel Whiskersworth. Oi, Shanker, no shanking.
Yeah, you're gonna tell a guy named Shanker not to stab someone?
Yeah, that's you're not getting anywhere there, my friend.
Yeah, are you unfamiliar with his name and the origins thereof?
Exactly. That's you don't spit in the wind. You don't tug on Superman's cape, and you don't tell Shanker not to stab.
Yeah, definitely not. But yeah, I just, there's a few normal names in this. I am exaggerating, but all of the important characters have fairly ridiculous names, like Brittany Brookbank and I don't know. Now I'm just going to make some shit off the top of my head, but there could easily be a Raven Wolfclaw in this book or something, and I would not raise an eyebrow.
There's also a character, he's an extra, but is referred to, I believe, twice as a, quote, tosser in a Wild Flag t-shirt.
Yeah.
So, okay, first off.
Wild Flag, what's up?
Surprisingly hip. But I believe tosser in a Wild Flag t-shirt is in fact redundant. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Getting kicked off Pitchfork for that one.
Yeah, Pitchfork's coming for you with that one.
You might say they're going to grab themselves.
Oh, man. Too bad there's not a website review site called The Torch, or then they could, join forces.
Oh, God, there was. It was a spinoff from Dipshit, Glenn Beck, the crier, had a website. I believe it was a spinoff of The Blaze called The Torch. I could have that wrong.
The Blaze and The Torch. Wow.
That's called That's called branding consistency, my man.
It's also called modern American conservatism. Let's take a break. History shows by hook or by crook how our podcast points out the folly of a book.
Ooh, you've been sitting on that one for a minute.
I have. That's why I've been eager to get started again. So we're back talking about Blue Őyster Cult themed horror novel / crime thriller by Robert Galbraith, quote unquote, called Career of Evil. And I think we're going to start out with the evilest segment in podcasting history here.
Oh, I thought it was the most careerist one.
It might be
it's always
that.
Bugging people on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Sending you weird recruiting emails at like 6 in the morning on a Sunday. Like, anyone will want to work at a job where they make you send out recruiting emails at 6 in the morning on a Sunday. Anyway, here's a song.
Dramatic readings. We're gonna make it sound recorded. Dramatic readings. Yeah, I got some words for you.
All right, so dramatic readings. We take pieces from this book. We read them to you. Would you like to go first, or should I?
Sure, I can go first. This is early in the book and sets the tone. I don't want to talk about it, grunted Strike. He glowered into his fresh pint, but Robin refused to be intimidated. Whoever sent that leg, she said, sent it to me. All right, said Strike grudgingly after a brief hesitation. His name's Jeff Whittaker. Robin felt a thrill of shock. She did not need to ask how Strike knew Jeff Whittaker. She already knew, although they had never discussed him. Cormoran Strike's early life was documented on the internet, and it had been endlessly rehashed by the extensive press coverage of his detective triumphs. He was the illegitimate and unplanned offspring of a rock star and a woman always described as a super groupie.
What fucking newspapers are you reading, lady?
English tabloids,
Oh,
I
yeah,
take
actually,
it.
that's a good point. The Sun.
A woman who had died of an overdose when Strike was 20. Jeff Whittaker had been her much younger second husband who had been accused and acquitted of her murder. They sat in silence until their food arrived. Why are you only having a salad? Aren't you hungry? Asked Strike, clearing his plate of chips. As Robin had suspected, his mood had improved with the ingestion of carbohydrates. That is probably the best sentence in this book.
I feel very seen.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Cormoran Strike, you're hangry.
Yeah.
Wedding, said Robin shortly. Strike said nothing. Comments on her figure fell strictly outside the self-imposed boundaries he had established for their relationship, which he had determined from the outset must never become too intimate. Nevertheless, he thought she was becoming too thin, in his opinion, and even the thought fell outside those same boundaries. She looked better, curvier. Side note, my man, you did not put up the guardrails. You are her boss.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, bully to you, to, coin a Britishism for, trying to follow the rules of, how employee relationships should work. But, your inner monologue needs some work.
Janice, I'd like to compliment you on your jugs today and ask you when that report I've got for you is due. Said the quickly fired Cormoran Strike.
Exactly.
Aren't you even going to tell me, Robin asked after several more minutes' silence, what your connection with that song is? He chewed for a while, drank more beer, ordered another pint of Doom Bar, then said, My mother had the title tattooed on her. He did not fancy telling Robin exactly where the tattoo had been. He preferred not to think about that. However, he was mellowing with food and drink. Robin had never showed prurient interest in his past, and he supposed she was justified in a request for information today. It was her favorite song. Blue Őyster Cult were her favorite band. Well, favorite is an understatement. Obsession, really. Her favorite wasn't the Deadbeats? Asked Robin without thinking. Strike's father was the lead singer of the Deadbeats. They had never discussed him either. No, said Strike, managing a half smile. Old Johnny came a poor second with Lita. She wanted Eric Bloom, lead singer of Blue Őyster Cult, but she never got him. One of the very few who got away. Robin was not sure what to say. She'd wondered before what it felt like to have your mother's epic sexual history online for anybody to see. Strike's fresh pint arrived, and he took a swig before continuing. I was nearly christened Eric Bloom Strike, he said, and Robin choked on her water. He laughed as she coughed into a napkin.
Better name than Cormoran.
Let's face it, Cormoran's not much bloody better.
No, it's actually way worse.
Cormoran Blue. Blue? Blue Őyster Cult. Aren't you listening? God, said Robin, you keep that quiet. Wouldn't you? This is probably the best dialogue in the book, too.
Yeah.
What does it mean, mistress of the salmon salt? Search me. Their lyrics are insane. Science fiction. Crazy stuff.
LSD.
He drank more beer.
All right.
I don't think I've ever heard any Blue Őyster Cult, said Robin. Yeah, you have, Strike said, contradicting her.
Mansplaining the fuck out of music like middle-aged men are prone to do.
Don't fear the Reaper. Don't... What? It was a monster hit for them. Okay. Don't fear the Reaper. Oh, I see.
No, I refuse to believe there is anyone in this world who has never heard Don't Fear the Reaper.
Or... I think that there are some people who haven't, but I refuse to believe that there's anybody who, if somebody says, don't fear the Reaper, is like, oh, I assume that they are giving me a piece of advice.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not how conversations work.
Oh, I see. Don't fear the Reaper.
I won't?
I guess I'll stop.
She also has a good memory for things that she's heard and forgotten, because a couple chapters later, when she's trying to password protect her email against Matthew, the dickhead.
Matthew, dickhead fiance.
She changes her password to Don't Fear the Reaper. Now,
it's a good password.
It's a good password. It's fairly long. I got to say, mix in one or two capitals, maybe drop a number or two in there, and you're a little stronger. But Don't Fear the Reaper, solid.
There are studies about this. Numbers, symbols, whatever, doesn't matter. You know what helps? Spaces.
Pure length. Well, if they accept spaces or underscores,
which
I guess.
a lot of places don't. But if you were to actually create a password that is a sentence with spaces, it is 1,000 times more secure than any combination of 86 digits of fucking blah blah blah, because it's harder to brute force.
Exactly.
But we won't get into that. Speaking of brute force.
Are you about to knock the door down and bowl over Shanker?
Basically, yeah. I'm going to read Robin opening the box that contains a severed women's leg. So, be prepared. This is immediately after she has opened the box, chapter 3.
Oh, fuck. I just got what that is from. Anyway, never mind. We'll get to that in a later segment.
Okay. Chapter 3. Robin's scream reverberated off the windows. She backed away from the desk, staring at the obscene object lying there. The leg was smooth, slender, and pale, and she had grazed it with her finger as she pulled its packaging open, feeling the cold, rubbery texture of the skin. Ew. She had just managed to quell her scream by clamping her hands over her mouth when the glass door burst open beside her. 6'3" and scowling, Strike's shirt hung open, revealing a monkeyish mass of dark chest hair. I'm feeling very seen once again. What the? He followed her stricken gaze and saw the leg. She felt his hand close roughly over her upper arm. Oh, we're kind of violating our thing here.
Workplace agreements.
Yeah. And he steered her out onto the landing. How did it arrive? Courier, she said, allowing him to walk her up the stairs. On a motorbike. Wait here, I'll call the police. When he had closed the door of his flat behind her, she stood quite still, heart juddering, listening to his footsteps returning downstairs. Acid rose in her throat. A leg. She had just been given a leg. She had just carried a leg calmly upstairs. A woman's leg in a box. Whose leg was it? Where was the rest of her? She crossed to the nearest chair, a cheap affair of padded plastic and metal legs, and sat down, her fingers still pressed against her numb lips. The package, she remembered, had been addressed to her by name. Strike, meanwhile, was at the office window that looked down into the road, scanning Denmark Street for any signs of the courier, his mobile pressed to his ear.
Oh, thank God nobody nicked it.
Yeah. I don't know. English listeners, you probably don't realize how funny mobile is to Americans. We say cell. I get it. You probably think that's silly too, but mobile will always make me laugh. Oi, chaps. Anyway, by the time he returned to the outer office to scrutinize the open package on the desk, he had made contact with the police. A leg? Repeated Detective Inspector Eric Wordle on the end of the line. A fucking leg? And it's not even my size, said Strike, a joke he would not have made had Robin been present. His trouser leg was hitched up to reveal the metal rod that served as his right ankle. He had been in the process of dressing when he had heard Robin scream. Even as he said it, he realized that this was a right leg, like his own lost limb, and that it had been cut below the knee, which is exactly where he had been amputated. His mobile still clamped to his ear. Strike peered more closely at the limb, his nostrils filling with an unpleasant smell that, like recently defrosted chicken. Caucasian skin, smooth, pale, and unblemished, but for an old greenish bruise on the calf, imperfectly shaven. The stubbly hairs were fair, and the unpainted toenails a little grubby. The severed tibia shone icy white against the surrounding flesh. A clean cut. Strike thought it likely to have been made by an axe or a cleaver. A woman's, did you say?
Hello. What's all this then?
Oh, man, it's a good thing that no chavs nicked his mobile.
Jesus Christ. That is, so we both, by kind of happenstance, read things from quite early in the book, and I'm starting to see what you mean about the Harry Potterishness of the tone, which I do think settles down.
It starts out a lot more playful.
Yeah.
There are, little jokes and stuff, and then you could tell, she kind of runs out of little jokes and just starts getting darker and darker until you're at, full-on, fucking horrible violence against child territory and stuff, so, yeah.
Yeah, but we spend a little more time in the head of the killer than maybe we need to. And his opinions about ladies, it will possibly not shock the listener to discover, are not positive.
They are horrifying. And once again, I'm just saying, the fact that this comes from the pen of someone who felt the need on Hanukkah to go on Twitter and go, by the way, there was a Jewish character in fucking Harry Potter all along. Check it out. It just seems so weird to me.
Yeah, they owned the bank.
I don't know. She's so invested in diversity and things like that, and then she writes these books with some of the worst misogynist crap I've read in a long time.
Yeah,
it's horrible.
It's the freedom of the pseudonym, and I got nothing.
She was already uncovered by this point.
Let's play. She's always thought of it as her own personal playground, she says.
Yeah.
What I like to do when I go to the playground is get super weird about ladies.
Yeah, I go to the playground and just sit on the swings and yell racial slurs and fucked up shit. I'm not allowed on the playground anymore.
Oh, actually, you know what? That's good.
Yeah,
if that's how you're acting, yeah, fuck you on the playground. Let's play some more games, shall we?
Okay. Hopscotch, maybe.
I was thinking maybe
take a trip down the slide.
If we were going to go to the playground, that would certainly be a surprise.
Ooh, that would probably be the biggest surprise I could imagine. Here's a song.
Never run empty, we're vigorous guys. The show runs longer and vigorous size. Got them hungry minds and the rigorous eyes. Let us tell you about this fucking book's biggest surprise. Boom!
At the playground, that's where I met my baby. All right, anyway.
So do you want to go first? Was there anything particularly surprising to you about this reading experience?
The entire fucking thing. I can't narrow it down to one thing. It's just the fact that I went in, I knew JK Rowling had written detective novels under a pseudonym. I did not realize it was going to be a graphic, gory, sexually explicit fucking thrill ride of like offensive language and horrible plot points, and yeah, I mean the whole thing.
Okay.
Just the fact that it is what it is surprised me. Like when I heard she wrote mysteries under a pen name, I thought something more cozy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know.
Oh, let's get to the bottom of the mystery of the befouled rug, Mr. Whiskersworth.
Exactly. You know, it's how not Harry Potter this is a big surprise.
I'm actually kind of, even though I did not like this book, and I feel particularly personally betrayed and attacked by the fact that you can write a mediocre SVU ripoff with nothing but Blue Őyster Cult references and not make it good. That's hurtful, frankly. And I would like 1,000 pounds in recompense.
Well, all you got to do is create a pen name and
sewer. Yeah. But like the sheer variance between the two things does make me respect her as a writer more.
It's true. What I mean? She is capable of, completely transforming. You know, as we did say up front, it's pretty Potterish. Yeah. But by the end, this could easily be written by like a James Patterson or she has talent in more than one genre for sure.
Yeah. Let's see you pull that off, McMurtry.
Yeah, like Stephen King's never going to write an endearing series about child wizards.
Cormac McCarthy has exactly one setting.
Yeah.
JK Rowling has two.
At least that we know about.
Checkmate, motherfucker.
I feel bad. Like, we've really been making Stephen King the whipping boy this episode, too. It's like a little kind of not fair.
Yes, but people know we like Stephen King.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
And I think people understand we like Harry Potter.
Yeah, I mean, everybody likes Harry Potter.
Yeah. Okay, so the biggest surprise...
He's a wizard! Sorry.
He's a wizard, and he plays space rugby. Maybe a little closer to space polo.
I was going to say, it's a little confusing. More like lacrosse.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely space lacrosse. By the way, the people who complain that the rules don't make sense are wrong. It's a great parallel track to victory, and if you think otherwise, you're a buffoon.
It's what's called an asymmetrical game. They're all the rage right now in tabletop gaming. Stop being a jerk.
And what's cooler than tabletop gaming, friends?
Harry Potter for adults?
Remembers podcast audience. That's right, nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, wait, roll it back. Who's listening? Absolutely nothing. It's the best thing. Please invite us to your conventions.
Yeah. Please continue to listen to us in the background as you roll up your characters. I don't know. Anyway, the biggest surprise to me, and we touched on this before, but I'm going to read you a chunk of it, is the specificity and apparent verisimilitude and depth of knowledge about dirtbags. Displayed.
I don't know how to say this without being a jerk. So I'm just going to say it, and I don't mean this in a jerky way because I was a dirtbag as a kid too. I think JK Rowling was a dirtbag when she was a kid.
I don't know if she was a dirtbag. I think she probably I'm just going to read this paragraph, and I'm going to speculate that this is based on somebody that she knew at a time in her life. And that's all I'm going to say, because otherwise it's just too detailed.
I'm just going to say, like J.K. Rowling definitely at age 14 or 15 snuck a couple cigarettes next to the dumpster behind the shopping center.
That's, I think, extremely fair.
Because they don't have Little Caesars over there, so you can't do it on the roof.
So here's a paragraph.
Okay.
Thrown out of his most recent band, Whittaker continued to dream of stardom.
Yep.
It gets deeper. He knew 3 guitar chords and covered every bit of paper not hidden from him with lyrics that drew heavily on the satanic Bible, which Strike remembered lying, its black cover emblazoned with a pentagram and goat head combined, on the mattress where Leda and Whittaker slept. Whittaker had an extensive knowledge of the life and career of the American cult leader Charles Manson. The scratchy sound of an old vinyl copy of Manson's album Lie, The Love and Terror Cult, formed the soundtrack to Strike's year.
Yeah, that's on point. Most people would go right to Helter Skelter there.
I knew that guy. That guy was my friend Jeremy's older brother, who was real scary when he'd get some chemicals inside him.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, yeah, That's not the kind of knowledge you get from research.
Also, for the record, Jeremy's name, not spelled how most people spell Jeremy. Anywho, so that was a big
Did he
surprise.
or did he not speak in class? That's the question.
Well, I hope he's not smoking crack today.
Yeah.
Anywho. Let's do one we never do.
Okay.
And we've talked a little bit about this, but this seems to show its influences in a unsubtle way from time to time.
Uh-huh.
Perhaps it's not just mining certain territory. Perhaps it's ripping it off.
Ripping it off, ripping it off. You say get inspired, but I say rip it off.
Okay, yeah, ripping it off. You're going to have to go first because although you did text me to prepare me for this, I did not do the homework. And so I'm going to have to do this on the fly. So you go first.
I mean, you've mentioned Midsummer Murders.
This
I think is
absolutely does
accurate.
not rip off Midsummer Murders.
So for me, this is basically the BBC reboot of Sherlock, where you've got a very famous detective who's plagued by somebody who's trying to ruin his reputation.
Oh, yeah.
Galbraith is also ripping off Spencer for Hire with the whole hoodlum friend, which is not uncommon in the genre, but I think that's the best and most famous version
definitely.
of that.
The Paramount example, if you will.
And I will.
Yeah.
And, I just have to say it. Robin is Hermione Granger in a world without magic. And
Absolutely.
that's not a bad ripping off for me. But it is definitely, the bones are a little too clearly visible beneath the flesh there.
So I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on the show, but I spent a brief amount of time working in London and living in London. And while there, I became very obsessed with a television show called Law and Order UK.
Oh, you've talked about
which
this.
is essentially Law and Order, but it's the United Kingdom, so they wear the wigs.
Do they have the donk-donk?
No, but they do. They do wear the wigs.
They don't have the donk-donk?
No, believe it or not, they do not have dong dong, which really surprised. I might be wrong.
That's insane.
If they do, it's in a different register.
I mean, you should definitely have a posh English accent.
Yeah, dong dong. But it only lasted a couple seasons, but I feel like that was probably a pretty big inspiration on this book. Just right down to the type of crimes that are investigated, the interaction between, law enforcement and, private investigators, things like that. So yeah, even though there is no court scene in this book, I feel like it was very influenced by the order side of things.
Mm-hmm. Also, now that you're saying that, I will bet some money, not all the money in my pocket, because I'd like to buy a sixer on the way home, but I'll buy, minus that, the money in my pocket, that the first of these books came out after Taken, because Cormorant Strike is routinely described as a head taller than everybody else. His health isn't the best because he doesn't eat that well, but he's definitely a big, tough guy. And I think the idea is youngish, pre-cancellation Liam Neeson.
Yeah, he definitely has a particular set of skills.
Mm-hmm.
And
kind of a gruff manner.
And the more I think about it too, Dexter. Or Hannibal. Either one of those. One of those serial killer serials, if you will.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of that with, the way that the villain taunts our heroes. Like, it's almost like he wants to be caught.
Dear God. It's like that. There's an amazing tweet. I can't remember. I think it was Daniel Kibblesmith who just sort of said, there's something almost chilling about this Joker character. Imagine a man who finds crime to be funny.
Still a Riddler guy over here, but
I'm a Clock King man. Also a big fan of Man Bat.
Did Mixoplex have anything? Oh no, totally different universe. Never mind. I know nothing about comics.
Same universe, but a different city.
Different
city. Anywho, So this has been ripping it off where probably they should have ripped off more DC comics, particularly of the Gold and Silver Age.
Yeah.
Instead of the...
Oh my God, what if Robin was She-Hulk?
Yeah, why not? Fuck it. Let's go for it.
It is. Imagine the size of the leg they'd have to send her.
Dear God, the thing would be huge.
All right, I think we should take a break.
I think you're right. I'm not coming in with the hello again this time.
We recorded the best intro.
Unless you want to. Okay. Hello.
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 Oi, mate.
Hello.
So we're finished talking about A Career of Evil by Robert Galbraith.
Galbraith.
Galbraith. Wow, I don't know. We're finished talking about a career, as it says up here, A Career in Crime by Bobcat Goldthwait. And now we're moving on to things that we actually enjoyed. So this is the part of the show where we recommend stuff.
Not only venom and spite, sometimes with sweetness and light, and we always end the episode by telling you about a thing we like. Recommendations.
Doggy. All right, so if I could start us off here,
Please.
This is kind of a weird recommendation because I'm not sure if I liked this, but I think that fans of a particular genre should read this, and I especially think that it's a really good example of how to write a particular style of novel. And there's been a lot of hype around this, so a lot of you have probably already read it, but it's Tom Sweterlich, I think is how you say his name, wrote a book called The Gone World. It's been compared a lot to season 1 of True Detective meets like Interstellar or Inception or something like that, where it's essentially like it's a book that has a lot of the creepiness of that kind of before you realize True Detective wasn't going anywhere in season 1, also mixed in with a lot of just very strange kind of physics-based sci-fi. Like there's deep space travel, deep time travel, and ultimately it is an incredibly horrifying book. It's very difficult to read. Do not read it while you're eating. I learned that lesson. But if you're into that kind of stuff, I think you should at least give it a shot. I'm not sure I enjoyed it, but I will say that it is good. So that's my recommendation, I guess. You know, like sometimes not everything is fun that's worth putting in your brain. And I think if you're a fan of genre fiction, and especially if you're a fan of like time paradox type stuff, this is that done right with like a healthy kind of side heaping of like Ambrose Bierce, Campbell style pre-Lovecraft weird fiction. So yeah, I would check it out.
Interesting, especially when you were saying I don't know if I liked it, but I recommend it, and I was still thinking about how we could not get Galbraith's name right. I was like, oh my God, is Jay going to recommend gallbladder surgery? And that's just a little peek into my brain. So thanks, brain, for putting that one in there.
Everybody, get out there right now. Gallbladder surgery, the voluntary kind.
Do it. I'm going to recommend something that could not go better with either
gallbladder surgery.
With three powerful things. So it's the fourth thing that makes this healthy breakfast. The first thing is Robert Galbraith's A Career in Crime. The second thing, whatever the fuck that is. The second thing is The Gone World. The third thing is gallbladder surgery. And the fourth thing that I'm going to recommend is a movie film called Desperately Seeking Susan.
I love that movie.
Directed by Susan Seidelman, written by Leora Barish and Craig Bulletin. And I had somehow not seen this ever as an adult. And
oh, but you saw it as a teenager.
I saw it as like an early teen, and it didn't make sense to me. It makes a lot of sense to me as an adult. The things I liked most about it are its kind of screwball Hitchcock nods set in the world of early 80s Lower East Side, New York. And I don't want to say too much about it. I like it a lot. I think that if you listen to this show and like it, you'd probably like the movie as well. Content warning, Madonna.
I was just going to say, that's why I liked it.
Which might be a problem for some people, but it kind of made me understand Madonna's presence in the world in a way I hadn't before. And you kind of realize, like, oh, wow, there really was, like, a nuclear reactor of charisma there for a minute.
Yeah, when she was young, I mean, like, she was magnetic.
Yeah.
And, like, that's why I saw that movie was fucking Madonna is in it. And there was she did a really good song for it that had a really good video. And
the character she plays is a complete asshole.
Yeah.
And it really, really works.
I wonder why.
Yeah. Anyhow, so Desperately Seeking Susan, watch it. Probably don't read Career of Evil. Sorry. Do listen to the song Career of Evil. Lyrics by Patti Smith. Stuttering drum part by Albert Bouchard, because it's a fucking jam.
Cool. So moving on, sometimes we get things in the mail. We've got a box here. I'm a little worried there's going to be a leg in it, but let's play a song.
A, letter B, letter C, letter D, letter E, letter M, letter G, letter, got a lot of letters.
Okay, so letters. Sometimes digital, sometimes physical, sometimes severed limbs. Let's see which one we get.
My husband looks at me in a combination of pity and scorn. Are you really going to be one of those people who send crafts to podcasters? Me glances down at my handiwork. Maybe? And because I couldn't help myself, I present you with the enclosed. In my family tradition, which I inherited from my grandmother, this is a Christmas stocking, but you are welcome to view it as a Hanukkah sock.
Okay.
B, generic holiday receptacle. C, live show door prize. Or D, Patreon giveaway. It's totally the wrong season for this. And because I'm extremely bad at my job, it has morphed into pretty close to the right season for this.
Hey, what do you know?
But I knit stockings year-round, and any time is a good time for a pick-me-up.
That's a good family tradition. Mine is like more the Hank Williams style, which involves, getting drunk.
Driving the tractor to town.
You don't know that song?
No.
Why do I drink? Get drunk. It's a family tradition.
Yeah. There you go. All the best, Lori, fake last name.
I so want to see what it is because P.S. people that send crafts to podcasters are actually the best kind of people.
They are super cool, in my opinion. Sorry, I'm struggling with the envelope here.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
We'll put pictures of this up. It is a giant red stocking with a beautifully done version of the Devil Book logo.
Yeah,
and
how do you do that?
Some crabs.
Like, how do you knit that intricately?
I don't know. I think you've got to be amazing. But this is not an empty stocking.
Oh, it's
oh my
stuffed.
God, there's a human leg!
Ah! No, it's stuffed.
It's so stuffed.
Just like the crust of my favorite pizza.
There's so much stuff in here.
Okay, so I'm seeing books and there's 2 copies of each, which,
oh my God.
once again, you want to get your recommendation on the show, that's a pretty good way to make it happen, so...
For Jay, Emergency Palette Cleansers. I love cozy mysteries, and I'm sending you 2 of my favorites. I've reread them several times because they're just so fun. Though not all aspects have aged perfectly. The author, Elizabeth Peters, is better known for her Amelia Peabody character, but I have a particular fondness for her standalone books and shorter series.
Okay, so I've read some Amelia Peabody. I've never read anything else by that author. That's great. And you know what? I do need an emergency pick-me-up right now because I just finished this and The Gone World, which was one of the bleakest and most depressing books I've read in a long time. So I am ready for a cozy-ass mystery. Thank you.
There's also, I'm going to save this for a secret, but there's a largish bundle labeled possible bonus episode fodder. So ... to be continued question mark.
We'll discuss this off the air, where the fun really starts.
Literal palate cleansers for Jay.
God.
This is
Somebody really pays attention to the show, and I love it.
This is by far, this is amazing. So Jay has just been gifted a couple of actual
I'll say it.
cards to the Outback Steakhouse.
Yep. Gift cards to my favorite fucking steakhouse, which hate on haters.
And you know what? More bloomin' onions for Jay and me is what I say.
And for our friends outside of the U.S., I feel the need to emphasize this because I get the impression from many of my internet acquaintances who aren't in America that they think the Outback Steakhouse is some kind of wacky themed restaurant where the waiters throw boomerangs and wear crazy hats and talk in a fake accent. It's just a fucking steakhouse that has some kitsch on the walls.
No. It's a very accurate and deeply respectful evocation of Australia in much the way that McDonald's is a Scottish restaurant.
Gotcha, yeah. So I'm really looking forward to planning my trip to Australia, where I'm going to, sit behind a bar and watch American football and eat coconut shrimp.
And repeatedly ask people, so do you have rules here, or is it all no rules, just right?
I don't think that's their slogan anymore. They probably the problem is they didn't put up the "Don't masturbate" signs.
Eventually they had to put it up, and then they were like, well, I guess we have at least one rule.
One rule. All right. Outback Steakhouse.
The sad thing is they had to post it in the kitchen. Thank you.
Oh,
thank you.
Not even.
Be here all night.
High quality food. This show not brought to you by Outback Steakhouse, but I would consider it.
Yeah. We will never, this is a promise, we will never try to sell you a mattress. And who is you? You are, I guess, a hiring manager who somehow doesn't have a mattress or the ability to plan and cook a meal and you're out of underwear.
All right, yeah, this is just going on a weird tangent, but yeah, the combination of ads that show up on podcasts are so weird. They're like, you need to hire people, but you don't know how to find the right qualified candidates. By the way, are you tired of sleeping on the floor and eating trash?
Yeah. And do you need some really good underpants?
Well, to be honest, those underpants do rule, but we don't do ads, so I must shut up now.
Now, I have not worn a Mack Weldon underpant. I have worn, I think they're called Flint and Tinder, and oh my God.
It is worth, I will say this to all of
really
my friends out there who have not experienced the wonders of good underwear. It is worth upgrading from Hanes. Just wanted to point that out.
I could not agree more. I couldn't have been more skeptical. I was also just plain fucking wrong. Before we move on, I also want to say
let's talk about our nether regions some more.
Yeah. There's a thing in here for me that says for collision. Jay and I happen to share a favorite genre, but I'm up the proverbial creek thinking of an equivalent for you. Please accept this universal gift card to a used bookstore of your choice. And this is my pledge to you, Lori fake last name. Whatever I spend this on, we're going to do an episode on.
Okay, awesome.
So that episode will be quasi-sponsored. So already, thanks.
Yep, and we're definitely going to post a picture of the stocking right away.
Is so fucking cool.
This will also be hanging in my household when the holidays roll around, and we'll probably post a picture of it again then. So check it out.
It couldn't have been more full of tidings of joy. So thank you so much. That was wonderful. And I'm sorry it took me so long to bring it to Jay's to open it up.
No, I think it works out perfect because now it's the right time of year. So thank you to everyone who listens, even those who don't send us cool stuff and bribe me with Outback gift cards. I do want to just thank especially our friends on Patreon who donate to the show and help it keep going on. You can find us at patreon.com/IDEOTV. And that's where you can donate a small chunk of cash per month if you're so interested. And it helps us keep on doing this because, this is not a full-time job for us. It's not free and it takes a lot of work. And
again, 18 hours of audiobook.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying we deserve it, but it helps.
But we try to earn it.
Yeah, exactly.
You also get a bonus episode every month. We were a little bit late this last month, but, you know, we've also been going super long with them lately.
I mean, it was 2 days late, but it was also an hour and 45 minutes, so that's, you know, about as long as this is going to be. Our bonus episodes are not these skimpy little 20-minute excerpts of like, let's talk about a comic book. We take this shit seriously. Although they frequently are about comic books.
You might say, yeah, but not the comic books you think.
Yeah, no killing joke here. No, we're Riverdale all the way.
Yeah,
so.
How many episodes do we have either done or in the queue about Archie-related products?
I mean, if it were me, all of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's unfortunately, I only have so much pull around here.
Well, and so if you support us a little bit on Patreon, it will help us continue to do that kind of work. It will also free up enough time that Jay and I can sit down and work up our, what's his name, Dan Bachman themed tribute band with an Archie's theme, Archies of Loaf. And I think that's
It's
really...
Eric Bachman. But
Eric Bachman. Damn it, I was so close.
Archies of Loaf would be great. And after speaking to Eric in person after his show, yeah, that happened.
Oh, you mean the living room show you went to with 40 of your best friends?
It was just me and 40 other weird middle-aged ex-punks watching the singer of Archers of Loaf play Archers of Loaf songs acoustic and some of his new singles.
Fuck, that sounds good.
Solo stuff. It was incredible. Had a big old handle of cider, which really helped things a lot. But yeah, after speaking to Eric, I have a feeling he would appreciate the Archies of Loaf very much if we were to follow through on it.
Eric, if you're listening and you want to get there first, namaste.
Otherwise, I'm totally recording Sugar Sugar with like some springy guitars.
You got it all wrong. Anyway, yeah, so if you need me, you can email me at, or email us at idon'tevenownaTelevision@gmail.com. If you try to contact us in any other way, honestly, it'll probably get lost in the ether. But if you like the show and you wonder, hey, I wonder if other people who like this show are like me, and I wonder if they would like me, I suspect strongly the answer to both those questions is yes. And you can hang out with those people on the internet. Yes, you have to tolerate Facebook, but it is an island of good in the sewer of filth that is Facebook. It is called the I Don't Even Own a Television Fun Time Party Pit. You can search for it on Facebook, answer a couple of simple questions. We'll let you in, and you will be surrounded with like-minded people, bad book photoshops, bad book screen grabs, pets on books, pets on bad books,
Pictures of crabs.
Yeah, if you need if you are a crab biologist, an underrated way to keep up with recent developments in your field would be to jump in to the I Don't Even Own a Fun Time Party
That's
Pit.
true. Every day I wake up and I learn something new about crabs. I almost said every day I dream about crabs because
every day I wake up with crabs, but we don't need to talk about that on the show.
I was talking about corn.
I know you were. I was talking about an STD. Quick poll, which is more offensive to talk about?
I don't know.
Please sound off in the comments.
Every day I wake up with crabs from my Adidas track pants.
Oh my God, we didn't talk about this. How many characters in this show are wearing track pants?
There are several quote-unquote shell suits described, which is the full-on track pants and jacket. And you called it a show, which...
Oh, did I? Damn it.
I mean, I do it all the time, too, but I think it's a true measure of what kind of novel you're dealing with when one of us accidentally refers to it as a movie or a show.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true.
Oh, and guess what? It's being made.
Oh, yeah, there's a copy of this I saw when I was looking for the library version that has, I think... So Cormorant Strike is a big man kind of eating too much fast food and going to seed. So, of course, he's being played by what looks to me like Carl Urban.
Yeah.
The guy whose cheekbones I use to open my letters at home.
When it really should be Meat Loaf.
Or Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
Except he's canceled.
Yeah. He doesn't get jobs anymore.
No.
As far as I know, Meatloaf is still okay.
So yeah, we've obviously lost our damn minds. Thank you so much for listening. Reach out. We'll try to reach back.
Touch faith.
And,
sorry, we really have lost our minds.
And until next time, Blue Oyster Cult quote goes here.